All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Hangout. We're very excited to be celebrating sharks this week, all things sharks. So if you take a look at the Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants or the Sharks for Kids website, you can find a listing of the events coming up. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by Dr. Andrea Marshall. She is one of the world's leading manta ray experts. She was the first person to get her PhD in mantas. She's discovered at least one new species. She co-founded the Marine Megafauna Foundation in Mozambique, where they work to research and protect mantas as well as whale sharks and other amazing marine life in the area. She's a National Geographic Explorer. She can really do pretty much everything. So she's been an amazing friend to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants in the past, and we're thrilled to have you for another Hangout to share some of your adventures, Andrea.
Hi, guys. Well, I'm coming to you from what used to be a sunny Mozambique. It's now getting really windy and late in the day. But
Andrea, I'm just going to pause you. We lost your sound for some reason. Let me try and hit your microphone again. Okay, try now. Huh.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Okay. I just wanted to say hi before I start from Mozambique. It's a bit windy here today, as you can see, but I'm going to try and talk loud, and hopefully you enjoy this talk that I prepared for you guys on mantas. So,
all right. Well, I was going to say, we've got a great group of classrooms from Canada and the US joining us. We're off to a little bit of a slow start with a little bit of technical difficulties this morning, but we're going to go right through, and I can see your presentation already. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Great. Okay, guys. Well, as Joe so kindly introduced me, I am one of the co-founders for the Marine Megafauna Foundation. And we do research all kinds of different threatened marine animals across the world, particularly focusing on large charismatic ones that are threatened, things like our sea turtles or whale sharks or dolphins or manta rays. And we are really passionate about these animals. This is Shark Week, of course, so you guys are getting a lot of really amazing talks by shark researchers around the world. I'm going to focus on a group, kind of the cousins to the rays, or cousins to the sharks, which are the rays. It's actually a larger group than the shark group. There's actually more species of ray out there than there are species of sharks. A lot of people are not aware that rays are actually in a lot more trouble than sharks even too. So there's more species of rays that are considered vulnerable or threatened species than there even are sharks. And this means that this group really needs to be studied more intensively. And there's a lot more ray researchers out there, but there's a lot fewer of us than shark researchers at the moment. So I just like to pay tribute to the group in general. It is such a fascinating group. If you guys are not familiar with all the different types of rays that are out there, there are hundreds and hundreds of species. It's actually a more diverse group than the sharks. We have ones living in almost all different parts of the ocean. We have ones that have saws on the front of their face, some that can discharge electricity, some that live in surface waters, some that live in the deepest parts of the oceans, are free swimming and pelagic, and some that like to spend their time sitting on the ground. That come in all different types of shapes and sizes. It's a really fantastic group. So if you don't know much about rays, I encourage you guys to learn a little bit more. I am the head of MMF's Global Manta Ray Research Program. So I study manta rays for a living, and I have a whole network of students and researchers around the world that help me to study these animals. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about mantas today. So if you guys have never seen a manta or don't really know what a manta is, they are a ray, and they're actually the world's largest living ray. So they can get up to maybe 22 feet across from wingtip to wingtip. So they're pretty large animals. To give you a bit of perspective, here's one of my assistants next to a really large manta in Ecuador, and you can really see how large.
Second.
Sure.
Sorry, I'm just realizing that the slides aren't changing.
Really?
Yeah, when you did the screen share, did you share the application window or the whole? Oh, there it goes.
What are you seeing now?
Now I see someone with a manta.
Okay, maybe I can't do the screen share, or maybe I can't do.
It just depends. When you did the screen share, did you share the application window or the entire screen?
I said screen share.
Try it one more time, but this time look for the option for the entire screen.
So for the desktop, Google Hangouts, or Kids Talk Google Hangouts?
There should be one, if you click screen share, there should be one that says whole screen or whole desktop.
Whole desktop, maybe.
Yeah, okay, try that one.
All right.
There we go. I like the looks of it so far.
Okay. Do you see things are changing?
Yep.
Okay, well, here are some of the slides you missed. So these are some of the animals we work on. These are the different types of rays that I was mentioning before when I talked about the diversity in the group. And then when I talked about the size of mantas, I mentioned that they get up to 22 feet across. And this is the shot of one of my research assistants next to a really large manta ray in Ecuador. So you can just get a perspective of how large these animals get. They're really, really impressive. So mantas and all rays are actually similar to sharks in that internally they have cartilage skeletons and not bone skeletons like we do. And so this is what a manta ray looks like from the inside out. That's what its skeleton looks like. And its entire skeleton is made up of the same stuff that's in the tip of your nose or in your ear. And so that's what makes mantas and actually all sharks and rays so flexible and wonderful, gives them that range of movement that they have. Now, unlike a lot of shark species that you might be learning about this week in this amazing sort of Shark Week program that's coming to you, mantas don't actually have really large teeth like a lot of the sharks that you might be hearing about. They do have teeth and they're embedded in their lower jaw, but you can hardly see them. This is looking down on a manta ray's head and you can see its lower jaw, but you actually have to use really close-up photography to even see their teeth, which are embedded in that lower jaw. Mantas can have up to 4,000 teeth, so they have a lot of teeth, but they're just really, really small in size. So they definitely can't hurt you. Now, even though mantas sort of evolved and came from stingrays, which, as you know, have stinging barbs on their tail, mantas actually don't have the ability to sting you. So on their tail, they still have a little knob with a tiny miniature little spine, but it's no longer functional. So the reason I'm telling you these things is that there's nothing to be fearful of. Mantas are big, but they don't really have any teeth that can bite you. They don't have any stinging spines that can sting you. These are really one of the most friendly animals in the ocean. So no need to worry about them at all. Even though they came from stingrays, though, manta rays have evolved quite a bit. So their body plan, how they look, it looks really different than a normal ray, a normal stingray. You can see that their body is not round like a typical stingray. It's almost like a diamond shape. And those really large fins, they almost look like wings of a bird. They help propel them through the water. So these are really incredible athletes. They're capable of swimming really long distances. Unlike a normal ray that has eyes on the top of their head, manta rays have eyes on either of the sides of their mouth. And that helps them see above them and below them as they swim through the water. And also, unlike a normal ray that has a mouth at the bottom of its body, mantas have mouths on the end of their head. So you can see the opening of its mouth right there. And they also have these funny paddles on the front of their head called cephalic fins. And those are used for feeding. When they're swimming, though, they roll those fins up so that they kind of like tuck them away, and it makes them a little bit more hydrodynamic. And that's because mantas have to swim long distances and they want to be efficient when they swim. Unfortunately, mantas are hosts to a lot of different types of fish who like to kind of suck onto the manta and catch a ride. So what you're seeing in this photo is a manta ray traveling, and you can see all of these really large remora fish sucking on to the manta to get a free ride from one location to another. So these fish have a modification on their head, and they basically just suck onto the manta, and they cause a lot of extra drag. Some mantas can have 50 or 60 remoras on them, and they travel around the oceans carrying all of this weight and all of these fish. So it actually is not a very efficient way of being able to swim, but there's nothing they can do about it because mantas actually don't have hands, so they can't remove the fish. So it's kind of a bum deal for them. As I said before, mantas have really large mouths, so you can see its large cavernous mouth right here. And the reason that they've adapted this large mouth is so that they can feed on some of the tiniest organisms in the ocean, We call them zooplankton, and you can see all of the little particles in the water, and that manta vacuuming up all of that food that's suspended in the water. So they feed on these tiny little organisms in the water column, and mantas are capable of filtering 240 gallons of water a minute. So that's about as much water as in your average hot tub every minute. So as that manta swims with its mouth open, it's like a hot tub every minute that's going in to bring all that water out. The food that they're eating is, it could be little shrimps, it could be little jellies, it could be all kinds of different food. Water goes into the manta's mouth, and then the manta ray strains all of the plankton with these fine, almost filtering pads that they have, and then the clean water exits through those slits that you see at the bottom of its body. And so that's how the manta ray filters all of its food. You can actually see in this video here, hopefully if it plays, actually feed. This is a bit of a view of them feeding at the surface, wide open, capturing. They're very efficient, but required to eat a lot. So manta rays can spend hours and hours just feeding away. Times, and actually increasingly as we learn more about mantas, we recognize that they actually feed in deep water and at the bottom quite a lot. In fact, that might be their preference of how they feed. We wanted to learn more about mantas because, we only see them when they're inshore, but we don't really know what they do for the rest of their lives. So maybe about 10 years ago, I started to put the very first kind of tags on mantas around the world to find out where they go and how they use their habitat around them. That was a really interesting study. You can actually see me putting on one of the tags here. I show this so that you know that I'm not actually hurting the mantas when I tag them. You can see how easy the little tags go in, and then I'm just making sure it's secure, and then that manta will swim away, and those tags sometimes can last several years. Sometimes they last for a matter of a couple of months, but we're able to capture a lot of really interesting information that gives us an idea of the secret lives of mantas when they're out in the ocean far away from view. So we've learned now that manta rays travel thousands of kilometers in all different directions. They travel internationally between different countries. They travel offshore into like hostile waters that are, international waters, far away from land. And we now know that manta rays are incredibly deep divers, one of the deepest diving fish in the world, and they're capable of making really deep dives up to even 4,000 feet from the surface. So I told you before, they're incredibly athletic, and I meant it. These are really amazing swimmers, and they swim all over the ocean and in all parts of the ocean. They do come back to shore, and this is where we interact with them. And one of the main things that drives them back to shore is their need to be cleaned. So every day, manta rays actually go to cleaning stations that are little patches of reef where specific fish sit, and the mantas come and meet these fish, and then these fish clean different parts of their body. So here's a quick video showing all of the different little fish cleaning the different parts of the mantas. You can see all the little cleaner fish are actually yellow, a little butterfly fish, and you can see them cleaning the manta. Different fish clean different parts of the manta, sometimes in the mouth, sometimes on the back or around the face. And it's a really important daily activity and ritual for mantas. It's kind of like you going to the doctor's office or going to get a spa bath every day. It's important to their health that they're able to go to these cleaning stations. Now, sometimes the cleaning stations can get quite crowded. Sometimes they have 10, 15, 20, 30 mantas swimming around the same cleaning stations trying to avoid bumping into one another. It's actually even more crowded these days because a lot of tourists like stations to watch the mantas get cleaned. And one of the things that our organization does is work with tourism companies and tourists all around the world to try and make sure that tourists are diving what we call sustainably and appropriately with mantas to make sure that they don't affect their behavior. So this is a shot in Rogers Deli. They're all watching the mantas, but they're not really interfering with the mantas' behavior. So this is really good. Tourism for manta rays would be worth a lot of money, almost, about maybe $75 million a year. And so, you know, it's really important that we work to promote manta tourism. Top 10 list of underwater is because, you know, I study all kinds of different sharks and rays and animals, and mantas are amongst the most friendly animals that you meet underwater. They're just so inquisitive, and as they pass by you, you can see them checking you out with their really large eyes, and you can see that these are interested. So they make a great animal to sort of interact with. Uh-oh. Seems to be something wrong with my show. Joe, are you still there?
Yep.
There seems to be something wrong. I don't know what's wrong with my thing.
That's okay.
Let me just see if I can bring it back up again.
That's okay. It was, yeah, the pictures were coming through great. The video was a little bit choppy, but not bad.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just open it back one more time. I don't know what happened to it, but just give me 1 second, guys. As you think about all of that information that I just gave you.
Hey, it's you're in a beautiful location in Mozambique. The internet can't be perfect.
It's definitely not perfect, but we'll see.
All right.
Here it goes. It's opening now.
So you were just at a field site recently. Where were you?
Yeah, I just came back from Mexico, one of my favorite places to dive with mantas there. We got so many IDs. It was really, really great. We had a wonderful field season there, collected a lot of samples for one of my PhD students. So yeah, that was a time well spent and one of the most beautiful places to dive in the world with mantas for sure. Okay, let me just, I guess I need to share it again as well too, right?
I see it. Try going full screen.
Okay, let me just, I think I was about here. Okay. Let's see, slideshow. Uh-oh, it started at the beginning. Uh-oh.
It's okay. You can always just go through it quickly.
No. Here we go. There, it's close enough.
All right.
Okay. All right. So one of the reasons that mantas are so friendly, one of the reasons that people really like to interact with them is because they're very. We now know that manta rays have the largest brain of any marine fish. So that's a pretty impressive statistic. So of all of the sharks and rays out there, of all of the other fish in the ocean, mantas and their relatives, the mobula rays, have the largest brains. And so we're still investigating, you know, the extent of their intelligence, but they definitely are very social creatures, and they're definitely animals that really like to interact with humans, are very curious towards other intelligent animals, which is really awesome. And it makes them a great animal for tourism because they're gentle, because they're not dangerous, and because they're so social. They can be used as an animal see and get excited about. And one of the things that I really love about mantas is that they can be an ambassador for the ocean. So people dive, they have feeling really positive about diving, or feel really, really positive about the ocean. And that's really important to develop tourism, especially when mantas were hunted for many decades. So for the last 20 to 30 years, there's huge fisheries for mantas around the world. And sadly, these animals were being used as shark fins were being used as a tonic. And as a result, manta populations around the world were crashing. And they're still considered threatened species. All of the different species of mantas are considered threatened species. And so, you know, being able to develop tourism as an alternative for people who were once fishermen, who now can take people to see mantas and keep the populations alive rather than kill them, is obviously a better model. And so that's one of the things that we try and promote, especially in all of the areas where mantas were previously fished. Tourism can also be really beneficial for citizen science. So, we encourage people as they're diving with mantas to actually take photographs of the mantas because every single manta ray has a unique spot pattern on their belly that makes them individual. So of all of the manta rays out there and have different pattern of spots on them, essentially the same as our own fingerprint. I call it a belly print. And so by tourists around the world, thousands and millions of tourists around the world that are taking photos, a lot more information about the mantas, learn where they live and how large their populations are and how we can better protect them. So tourists can upload any of these photos, a database that I helped create online called Manta Matcher. And there's thousands and thousands of encounters now. And lots of different individuals in there, and we're able to get, it's almost like a Facebook for manta rays. So we're able to track the manta rays all around the world using this really cool global online database, and researchers are now able to do their job better by being able to use these online platforms. So what am I up to these days? Well, as Joe just mentioned, I came back from an amazing expedition now in Mexico, and this is where this photo was taken. I really enjoy working offshore Mexico. The mantas there are really, really friendly. And that was a very successful expedition. I also am in the middle of, I think he hinted this too in his introduction, I'm in the middle of potentially describing a third species of manta. So in 2009, I described a second species of manta. You can see both of the recognized species of mantas right here. And then at the moment, I'm looking at potentially describing a third one. And this is what it looks like. It lives in the Atlantic and the Caribbean, and it's being supported by National Geographic, the research for that. And I hopefully will be able to announce that to the world sometime this year. I'm also working really hard with my team and my husband. You can see my husband's a pilot. We're working really hard to monitor the population of mantas here in Mozambique, where I am right now. This is a really beautiful place, and I've lived here for 16 years, but there's been a really big decline in mantas off this coastline, almost a 98% decline in the number of mantas being seen off this coast in the last 15 years. And that's largely because of, again, unsustainable fishing practices where people are purposely catching mantas or accidentally catching them in all of their fishing gear. And as a result, there's far fewer mantas off this coast. And the take-home message from what we've learned in Mozambique is that manta populations are really small, and when you catch them unnecessarily, the populations crash really easily. And mantas only have one baby, every couple of years, and so they're not able to bounce back. They're not able to rebuild their numbers if people reduce their population sizes. And so, we really need to protect these animals because once they go extinct in an area, it's very difficult to bring them back. In addition to fishing, there's a lot of other threats that mantas face. And a lot of the students and researchers in my organization are studying more about those threats too. So things like boat strikes, or specifically things like pollution. You see in that bottom right-hand photo, a manta ray feeding through tons of trash in Indonesia and plastic. We really feel like that might be a really big threat to mantas across the globe is trash and pollution in the ocean. And we're working with a number of different organizations to figure out how we can learn more about this and how we can fix this particular problem. Where people can go out and enjoy these animals because they are one of the most beautiful animals in the ocean to be able to have interactions with. And I really hope that we're able to restore some of the populations that have vertical numbers. And I hope that the next you enjoy and appreciate these animals. Like a 2-year-old daughter at the moment, and I cannot wait to be able to take her under the water. Opportunity to meet them, has the option and dive with a manta ray sometime in your life as well. You can follow my work at Queen of Mantas all over. I'm on a lot of different types of social media, and also if you're interested in other big animals like whale sharks and turtles, and work of my foundation online as well. I know our social media early these days, and there's a lot of great content out there for you guys to learn more about these animals. So.
All right, Andrea, thank you so much. As per usual, that was an incredible presentation. I'm so jealous of your photos and the amazing places you get to visit. And yeah, man, it's just such incredible creatures, and it just must never, ever, ever get old for you. Just must be a total blast.
Never does.
All right, excellent. Well, if you hit the share screen button one more time, that'll bring you back to us, and we'll meet some of our classrooms.
Awesome.
There you are. Excellent. Okay, well, let's get meeting some classrooms. Let's see. So let's go to Mr. Gallagher's class first. They're in San Antonio, Texas. They're a grade 2 classroom. Let me turn their microphone on. Actually, Mr. Gallagher, you might have to get it for me. How's it going, grade 2s? Mr. Gallagher, do you mind turning it on for me? I just can't control it today.
There we go, I think.
There we go. We gotcha.
Yep.
All right. So how are we doing second grade?
Yeah.
All right. Nicholas has a question for you.
You see us? How could they say deep in the ocean?
Can you go a little louder, bud? I missed that.
How could they see deep in the ocean?
How can the manta see so deep in the ocean?
And you know what? No one asked me that question before. The answer is they can't really see down there, but they use all of their other senses to be able to tell where. And as soon as disappears in the ocean, they can't see, just like we can't see. To still feel around them with different senses. Sharks, they have things called thesis, and they're able to use those to sense certain. They actually have good hearing. They're able to they have a lateral line like sharks do as well, so they're able to sense things around them and prevent them from bumping into things as well using that lateral line. They're able to steer them on the ocean.
All right, Andrea, are you still able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we just lost a little bit of that. You talked a little bit about how we lose the light, it gets darker, and then they can use other senses like the touch, or they have lateral lines similar to sharks. It just broke up on us just a little bit there, but I think we got the gist of it, that they can use some of their other senses, and they're not really using their eyes once they get that deep.
That's right.
All right, awesome. Well, let's see. Let's go to Thunder Bay this time. Let's see if I can find them on our screen. Oh, maybe they're not there. So let's jump to the next classroom. So Mrs. Lawrence's group is joining us in Cary, North Carolina. They're a grade 6 classroom. Let me test your microphone and see if it's working for us. How's it going, grade 6s? Mrs. Lawrence, no luck with the microphone. So if you want to send a question via that blue side chat bar, it's just on the left of your screen in the top corner, and then I can fire that question off and we'll get it answered. But our test call was beautiful, but sometimes once you get the actual call going, things can change a little. So let's jump to a grade 7 classroom this time in Dallas, Texas with Mrs. Elliott. Let me turn their microphone on. There we go, grade 7s. How you doing?
What is the best part about living in Mozambique, and what are some of your other favorite places?
Awesome question. Well, you know, the best place about, I don't know if you guys saw where I live. That's probably the best part about living in Mozambique. It's so beautiful, wild. So you have to imagine, you know, being in a place that have looked thousands of years ago. It's just so beautiful and so wild here, and there's just so much to explore. So we went out on the boat this morning and we're swimming with dugongs, which is like an underwater sea cow kind of thing, like a manatee, but an ocean living manatee. And, you know, we just have so much nature and beauty around us. So I really enjoy exploring and just getting out there every day and seeing animals. But I love to travel to other places. We have a project in Indonesia, and that's another just such a lovely country, really lovely people, great food, and also amazing diving. And then, of course, I mentioned Mexico, which is one of my favorite places to be too for sharks and rays. Really an amazing country to explore. So yeah, thanks for the question.
All right, great question. And so Mrs. Lawrence, I see a question hasn't, oh, there it goes. So Mrs. Lawrence's class in North Carolina are wondering, what intrigued you to study these mammals? Or sorry, to study mammals, but also I guess the mantas as well, because we know they're not
mammals. They probably meant these animals. Yeah, she probably typed it quick. But yeah, that's a great question. The reason I started studying mantas is because no one had studied them really before, or not really in any great depth. And I knew that they're, you know, they faced a lot of pressure, including from fishing, and there was a market for their products in China. And I realized that no one really knew anything about these animals, and if we were going to help protect them, we needed to learn more about them. And so that's really why I started studying them. I actually have always been a bit of a shark lover my whole life, but I really felt that you know, if we're going to protect some of these animals, we really need to know more about them. And, you know, no one else was doing it, so I thought I should.
All right, excellent. Let's jump to another classroom now. Let's see. Let us visit Mrs. Let's go to Winnipeg, Quebec this time with Mrs. Lachance. She's with some grade 6s. And I believe this is yours. Grade 6s, how you doing?
Oh, great. It's Mr.
All right, go ahead with a question.
Mr. This is mine.
Oh.
If there's too many remora fish on the manta, will it harm it?
Did you catch that, Andrea?
Well, I think he asked if there was too many remora fish on the manta, will it harm, I think he said, the manta?
Yeah.
And yeah, yes, it does. So in addition to just being a lot of drag, imagine you were trying to swim through a swimming pool and you had a bunch of wet cats hanging on you. You know, a bunch of little wet kittens hanging all over your wetsuit or something like that, and you were trying to swim through the pool. There'd be so much drag on you that you wouldn't be able to swim very well. And that's essentially what happens to the manta. But additionally, the way that the remoras suck onto the mantas, they use so much force that they rub up against the sand, you know, to try and irritate the fish and get them to drop off. And I've actually seen in some extreme situations, like the manta that I showed you with so many on them, sometimes they actually hit themselves against the reef to try and knock the remoras off, but that can injure themselves too. Imagine if you just ran and hit yourself against a wall. And that's essentially what the manta does. But they get so irritated with all of these fish all over them that sometimes they're willing to do that just to try and knock a few of them off.
All right, great question. Let's see. We have not visited Mrs. Dudley's class. They're in San Antonio, Texas. They're a grade 2 classroom. And Mrs. Dudley, your microphone is not cooperating for me. Do you mind turning it on for me? Sometimes if it's an iPad, I can't control. So go ahead if you have a question.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, did anyone else have a question? Okay, so yes, Avery.
Why are the mantas so flat?
Why are they flat or fat?
No, flat.
Why are they so flat? Can you hear that? You wanted to know why are they so
Did you catch
flat?
that, Andrea? They're wondering, why are they so flat compared to other...
That's a great question. That's actually one of the features of the rays. So sharks are like more cylindrical in shape, and rays are sort of flattened animals. And a lot of times, you know, if rays end up spending a lot of time sitting on the ground, you know, around a reef. And, you know, I think that's helpful. If you are sitting around a reef and you're flat like a pancake, it's probably easier for you to rest properly. But manta rays themselves, you know, even though they look really flat, they're actually quite a thick animal. They're actually a big animal. They can weigh a lot. And so they're not actually as thin as you think they are. But I definitely think that the shape helps.
Uh-oh, I think our internet in Mozambique may have taken a little break on us. So as you can imagine, you'll have to get your teacher to look up Mozambique for you on a map. Mozambique is a very, you know, it's a very different country than what we're used to. They don't have the infrastructure and the really good internet signal like we do. So sometimes we can lose the signal, and Andrea is going to have to come back to us. So we'll give her a moment to notice that we lost her, and then hopefully she'll be able to come back and join us. But sometimes when you connect from a remote location, it doesn't always cooperate. But I am glad that we got through one whole round of questions, so that's awesome. And I'm glad we got to see Andrea's presentation, because she is doing some absolutely incredible work all around the world to protect mantas. As I mentioned, she's probably, if not I think she's the world's leading manta ray expert. She's pretty amazing, and first person to get her PhD in manta rays. And as she mentioned, already one new species discovered and potentially a third. So she's doing some pretty amazing work. But we'll give her another minute to hopefully get back in with us, because it'd be great if we could get in a couple more questions before the end of the Hangout. So let's give her another second. Otherwise, big thumbs up if you guys learned a lot about mantas today. Good, lots of thumbs. Big thumbs up if now you want to go scuba diving with a manta. All right, excellent, good. Okay, well, let's give her a little, another minute. Hopefully it's just a blink in the connection, and she'll try to get back in with us. If not, we might have to stop things a little bit early. We might not be able to get any bonus questions in. But of course, what you can always do is have your teacher send me some questions if you guys do have more questions, and I can email Andrea, and she can email me as well. And in fact, she just messaged me on Messenger and says her signal went out on her. She can't get it to log back in. So let me try and just give her another quick little message. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to get her again. So I think the wind may have done some damage to our connectivity for today. So once again, boys and girls, that was a ton of fun. I'm going to turn your microphones on, and your teachers might have to help me out, our Texas classrooms. And I'll let you guys say goodbye and thank you really loud. And then when Andrea plays it, she'll at least be able to hear you guys saying goodbye and thank you. So if you guys want to go ahead, nice and loud.
Oh, enough.
All right, so again, she sends her apologies. She's able to get me a messenger message, but she can't get enough internet to get back into the Hangout. So thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of Shark Week, and hopefully we see you all again soon.